Hello, and welcome to a moment that I've been looking forward to for quite a while. It's when you go under a rock and you work on stuff, it's always nice to bring it out of stealth mode and present it to the people who actually care and actually are going to do something about it. So welcome here, welcome on Zoom. If you're watching this recording, thank you for giving your time, energy, and effort to this. If you don't know me, my name is Sim, like a SIM card in a phone. And we've been working on some beautiful projects which are based on real world value rather than on the kind of fake value that you may have noticed in a token called FTX or FTT that has had a rainy day, if we were to say that nicely. So before we go into all the details of all this stuff, I just want to reiterate where we come from. This room's heard it before, but I think it's really valuable to always reiterate the core around why we're even doing all of this stuff, right? So I just want to start with the understanding around what is value, because often that part gets missed in the bigger picture of investing into coins and tokens just to try to get rich, right? When we look at the concept of value, the most basic gist of it is that it's value that you add to people's lives. You improve people's lives in some way by doing something that's valuable to those people. And those people are happy to give back their own value, their own love that they've earned in the form of money. And they show love back to you. And that value exchange is what should actually drive the world rather than the thirst for money or just buying things to take somebody else's money, right? But even more than that, it's important to remember our values beyond just value itself, right? Because it's the values that drive you that are going to determine the world that you build. And we have this beautiful opportunity to build this completely new, more equanimous, more fair, more decentralized world, which is built on principles that are different from the principles that are of the old world. But for us, the core values are doing things that don't harm the earth, that improve people's lives, that definitely generate a return for investors, but not at the cost of the earth and not at the cost of anything else. Not at the cost of humanity, not at the cost of our ethos and ethics that we go into things with. And keeping all of that in mind is what, that's why we specifically built things the way that we built them, because they meet all of these requirements around how to drive value into the future and how to build the value into the future. So it's one of the most important things anybody values is feeding their family. As a matter of fact, at the core, showing love to our loved ones and taking care of our loved ones is absolutely the biggest driving factor when it comes to the values that drive us. And most people in the world are just good people trying to feed their families. And today what we're seeing is, first of all, there's a disparity in the wealth that people have. So some people have too much wealth and they can actually, they actually feed millions of families. And then there are some people who have a hard time even feeding their families. And now we're seeing countries have that problem. Countries are facing food security issues, and getting food to people, even in wealthy countries, is becoming an issue, right? So that's one of the values that we're focused on. But the other value that's also really close to my heart is showing people the value that exists in these new blockchain models, these new metaverse crypto models, right? Because we have the opportunity to build something that could be extremely valuable and leave a world to the generations that is way better than the world today. Or we can just keep playing the game in crypto that's been played up until now, which is, buy something, pump it up, take somebody else's money, and somebody always loses in that whole process, right? So we are shifting not only the fact that, we want to feed people, but also shifting the way that people participate with digital assets and participate in this future that exists, right? So in simple terms, most of the cryptos that exist today are fake. They were popped into existence by some creative founder. They don't actually feed people. They don't actually add value to people's lives. They're given to VCs. Basically, a founder creates it, pumps up the value just out of thin air, gives it to VCs. The VCs then take it and pump up the value and put it onto a market, give it to market makers. The market makers artificially inflate the value and then dump it onto retail investors who are, not as knowledgeable about what's going on in this space. This we're going to talk about more tomorrow in tomorrow's talk, but that's the world that exists in crypto today. And this whole FTX fiasco is a representation of exactly that happened, right? Fake things that were made by people and pumped up by other people who just want to take money from those unsuspecting investors. And eventually that whole Ponzi scheme unravels and a lot of people get hurt. But the core of that is that it's not backed by anything, right? It's not backed by anything. There's nothing, there's no actual value behind it. That's why the things are worthless, right? So what we did is we focused on, like those of you that have been here for some period of time, first thing we did is we took mines, physical mines, and we tokenized them. And the token is backed by the profits from the mines. Mining is very valuable. The mines back the token. So you know the value that it's adding to people's lives, right? But then it was very interesting because, as that was coming to fruition, a bunch of projects came together. And it was serendipitous how we met these founders, who you're going to meet today, where we all connected together, and you could see that one founder had backed the digital assets with farms and farm productivity. One set of founders had backed it by commodity supply chains. It's very valuable to get those commodities to people, and they'd back the value of the digital asset with commodity supply chains. One founder had been working in a corner for 4 years to try to build a system which would back it by adding value to people's lives, giving them a better quality of life, but also enlivening the greatest minds to bring their visions to fruition, so that it's backed by the visions that get built that actually improve the world, right? This way of thinking about backing things is way more valuable. To me, it's way more valuable. I'd much rather make much less dollars in the process and actually make more impact and improve people's lives more, feed more people, get more food to people, get more metals to people, get more projects to fruition, give people a better lifestyle. Those things are, on the long term, way better investment models as an investor. But those things are also what the world really actually values, right? So it was beautiful that all these projects came together, our energies connected, and we basically decided to share the resources to bring these projects to fruition, right? That's also the future of this world that we're moving into. No longer does one founder have to sit alone and spend all of their own and their investors' money to build their own teams, to bring their own visions to fruition. We can share the resources together, and the same experts can actually bring many projects to fruition. And of course, we make sure that those projects are aligned with our core values around, living in harmony with nature, living in harmony with humanity, living in harmony with spirit, with our own ethics, right? So it was also interesting because this is the first time that I got the opportunity to take these models, which were developed to a high degree, and now they're actually, going live. I got to present them to like VCs. So first opportunity I had was I went to Nexticorn, NXC, which was a meeting of VCs that happened here because of G20. And I sat down with 15 VCs, one after the other, for 30 minutes. And within 30 minutes, I explained to them how these models are valuable. And without fail, every single one of them, you could see their mind being blown, because they were interested in entering the Web3 space, but they'd never even heard about this kind of stuff. They thought they're going to have to go buy XYZ token that they don't know about, that they can't even understand why people want it. And we explained to them, hey, you can buy tokenized mines, you can buy tokenized farms, you can buy tokenized commodity supply chains, you can buy tokenized society. And they were instantly smitten with that whole process. And this video is going to go out to many of them, many of you. And it was powerful because they could see the value behind it. And these are the top level investors that actually bring these things to fruition. That was the first opportunity. Then we went to ministers in Indonesia. That's the loop that I've been doing in this tour of duty. We went to ministers and government officials, and thank you to Sabdo for making those meetings happen, who you're going to meet very soon. And we presented to the ministers, hey, this is how we can increase the GDP of Indonesia. This is how we can make sure that farmers are fairly compensated. This is how we can make sure that the value that the farmers generate, the wealth that farmers generate, the money that they grow on trees, can actually be compensated fairly and at the same time be feeding countries. And just showing them that part, same thing happened with them. They understood it, they got it, they were like, we want a piece of this. As a matter of fact, we're going to open all the doors for you, because one beautiful thing about Indonesia is once you bring something valuable, they're very actually open to the idea of change and building these new models. They supported it, they became partners with us, And literally we took it to the Ministry of ICT and they decided, hey, we're going to give you all of our talent development pipelines. As a matter of fact, start teaching businesses how to do this. So I'm educating businesses as we speak. And talent. We took it to the city of Denpasar. The mayor of Denpasar was like, we're going to become your partners. We are going to give you a government building with a 500-person auditorium in the middle of Denpasar on us, okay, to bring this to fruition. We are going to give you basically the keys to the city to do what you want to bring these models to fruition and all the support that you need, okay? And then it was interesting because at the end of the presentation, they said, can you send us that pitch? And I was like, yeah, sure. May I ask why? They're like, we're going to have a meeting with the Bali Ministry of Tourism, and we're going to align the plan for the Bali Ministry of Tourism with this plan because this is the best plan we've seen. You know, you're going to be bringing high quality projects to Indonesia, and you're going to be seeding them here. You're going to be developing the local talent. That's what we want as a city to develop it. You know, and it was powerful to be like, the mayors see it, the ministers see it, the VCs see it, and then now then we took it to the Minister of Trade, the Vice Minister of Trade, Jerry Sambuaga, and we presented these models, and he literally just took the physical printout and went, don't tell anybody about this. This is my plan now. I'm going to launch this plan because this is a genius plan of how to improve Indonesia, right? And now he's become one of our partners in this whole process, right? And now it's like go to Davos and do all this kind of stuff. Then I just came back from GBBC in Singapore, which is Global Business Blockchain Council, Global Blockchain Business Council, and it's a group of the biggest institutions in the digital asset space. Everybody from Ripple to banks to regulators to the SEC, everybody is part of this group. And when we presented these models to them, they went, you need to present this to everybody who's in this council because they need to understand this is stuff that we can do and this is the future of how we build out this digital ecosystem, and it doesn't have these crazy crashes and collapses. It still will because there's so much people are going to build these scammy things, but you need to present this, and as a matter of fact, we will support you in that. You know, they made me the Indonesian ambassador for that, and then now we're going to be part of that conversation and presenting it to them. My point with all of this is the first time that before it came to this community, we got to do the full circuit and go ask the change makers, the ones who actually control the power in countries and the institutions, to see, hey, is this something that would be valuable to you? And they all went, yes, 100% this is something that will be valuable to us, build it, make it work, and we will take it off of your hands. We'll put it onto exchanges and we will invest in it. The sovereign wealth funds want to invest in these things, right? That, first of all, tells us that the people who are the largest investors, change makers in countries, they're interested in these kind of things. But what it also tells us is those same people have the values that are very aligned with us. You know, protecting the earth has become one of the best value models that exists today. Investors are pivoting towards protecting the earth because nobody wants to destroy the earth and make money. I mean, there's people who do, but that way of thinking is going by the wayside, right? So what we explained to them was that crypto has these waves, right? There's a hype. It was like ICO hype in 2017. And then all of them collapsed because they were not backed by anything. Now we had the DeFi hype, and then those collapsed. And then we had the metaverse hype, and those collapsed a decent bit, and they're going to go through probably another collapse. The next hype wave is going to be real world asset-backed tokens. Because once institutional players lose money in this space, the first thing they're doing, and I heard this from the regulators themselves, in the room themselves, they said, we're going to create regulations that are going to protect investors from getting hurt like this by buying scammy coins. And the institutional players are waiting for the other side of that wall to buy things that are actually valuable, that are backed by real world value, right? But even beyond that, what I focused on was explaining to them, okay, this is how we're solving the problem of food security. You know, there's too much food in the world, it just doesn't get to the right tables. Indonesia has an overabundance of food, right? Indonesia has won an award for food security from how much food is being produced here. And then, you know, Saudi Arabia and Dubai, they're in a desert. They have all the money in the world, but they don't have food. And they are scared. They're scared that in this world that we're going to where, you know, all these problems are showing up, food will not reach their tables. And I explained to all of these people that, hey, this is how we're literally solving the problem of food security. Beautiful. We're actually feeding kids. Remember, our KPI, our main KPI, is feeding kids. And the more kids we can feed and the more families we can actually, whose lives we can improve, the more we can actually build a world that's better going forward. On the farmer side in Indonesia, what we realize is farmers in Indonesia have money when the harvest comes in, and when the harvest is not there, they don't have money. They still got to feed their kids, right? So what they do is they go to loan sharks and they take out loans at insane interest levels because the loan sharks know the farmers need it. There's nowhere else to get money from. Then when the harvest comes in, they actually, usually the same loan sharks will buy that supply off the farmer at bottom barrel prices, and the farmer gets nothing basically. And that's why the next time they need debt again, right? Then that middleman sells it to another middleman, who sells it to another middleman, who puts it in a warehouse and piles up a bunch of it. And then when factories need 1,000 tons of that commodity, then that middleman with the warehouse makes most of the money. The farmer still gets screwed on the ground. And we're solving this. And we're going to describe how. Along this whole process, there's no transparency. There's no way of knowing who's doing what. Nothing is trackable or traceable. And it's a very inefficient system. Imagine, we could just make rice and put it in a factory. But the rice gets picked up from the farmer and gets put here. And then it gets put over here. And then it gets put over here. And then it goes to the factory, right? The inefficiency of that system is the reason why everybody gets to take a cut, but that's also, it slows down slows down a country in that process, and we're solving that. Then once the commodity is produced, there's a bunch of organic waste. When you take rice and you dehusk the rice, you get 50% rice and you get 50% rice husk. And the farmers don't have any other thing to do with it except for burn it, right? That's why when we're saying we wish that people wouldn't burn things in the field and generate pollution and carbon and all this stuff into the world, they have no other option. It's a waste material, right? And so we thought, why don't we solve that problem too? By generating the farmer an income from protecting the earth and not burning that stuff. And we're going to explain how we did that. So solving these core issues in a way that it becomes an investment model has never been done before. And today, it's just a de facto thing. It's obvious that this is how we should do it, because why not? If we get to make everybody money, get rid of organic waste, get rid of farmer debt, get rid of food security issues for people, and we get to make sure investors are made whole, and it's done in a way that's fully transparent, that kind of stuff, it tickles me inside. That's the stuff I live for. That's also the reason why I went under a rock for the last year, focusing on these things. Because when these things were brought to me, my being was like, this is it. This is where you dedicate your life. And it became so much bigger than just the mines themselves. So what is this? What are these things I'm talking about? The first project is 5HarvestO. Can you put 5HarvestO up there, please? 5HarvestO is a simple idea. I can't believe nobody's thought of this. It takes farm productivity and turns it into an NFT. Okay? You don't take the farm and turn it into an NFT because the farm belongs to the farmer, and it rightly should always belong to the farmer. It takes farm productivity and turns it into an NFT. When an investor buys the NFT, that money goes directly to the farmer. 100% of the money goes directly to the farmer. So now the farmer who needed to feed their kids gets that money without any debt. Okay? What that NFT does is it then gives you rights to 45% of the profit that comes out of the next cycle, the next harvest, right? And because the farmer has gotten money today, and it's a reliable model that they can depend on, they're happy to share this back. So the investor basically buys an NFT, and that NFT gives them the right to the profits from the productivity of the next cycle. And at the end of the cycle, the investor gives back the NFT as proof of the ownership of the rights to these dividends, let's call them. And then 5HarvestO pays them back that 45%. Right? It's a simple model, but what it actually does is it completely gets rid of the loan sharks, so farmers are not in debt. It allows investors to access farming in Indonesia as an investment model without going through the complexity that's normally existent in tokens. So investors can invest, the farmer gets money, and phase 2, phase 3 of this is 5HarvestO is turning this into a game. So kids will be able to play farming in a way that incentivizes them or makes farming cool again, because there's like millions and millions of investors farmers that are over the age of 40. They're between 40 and 60 in Indonesia, and kids don't want to be farmers. And if kids don't want to be farmers, we're not going to have food hitting our tables within the next decade, right? So this is a multifaceted kind of solution, and we know that when you're doing this, especially in Indonesia, but in any country, you can't just walk out and say, we're going to revolutionize farming. I'm Sim from Canada. I'm going to revolutionize farming in Indonesia. You will get laughed out of the door, right? So where this came out of is an organization called APD, which is the Farmers Entrepreneurship Association that was created specifically to allow innovation to be brought to farmers. And it was created by Sabdo. And that association is a group of 1.7 million members in Indonesia. And these members tend to be not just farmers, they tend to be the leader of villages, the representative of the association in that specific region, who are the change makers in the area and can actually drive the deployment of these things, right? That 1.7 million members has access to 4 million hectares of land that can be brought under the system. Right now, there's 3,600 hectares that's already live today. And this isn't a pie in the sky idea. The harvests are happening as we speak. We just harvested melons. I wish I got some melons, but I guess they've moved too quickly. Next time I'm coming to the land and I want some melons, bro. But you know, it's already functional. It's not something that is going to be built in the future. It's a partnership between APD, which is this government organization, association, that is focused on creating this change. The Ministry of Agriculture is a partner to bring seed and the right seeds to the farmers themselves. The Ministry of State-Owned Enterprises is handling the fertilizer distribution or supporting the fertilizer distribution to the farmers themselves. The Ministry of Coordinated Economics and Finance is a partner in this process to allow this process to actually be scaled up through the financial side of things. Mandiri Bank and Bank Sharia Indonesia are the ones who are going to be providing loans to farmers if they do want loans at much better rates because they're working with 5HarvestO specifically. LPDB, which is the Fund for Cooperation from Ministry of Small Enterprise and Cooperation, is also part of this process. As soon as they saw this, they actually came on as a partner in that process. BRIN, which is the Indonesia Research Institute, is going to allow their facilities to be used for research and their network to be leveraged in this process. Bapepti, which is the regulator in Indonesia, is allowing us to have access to warehouses so we can actually get rid of that that middleman clogged supply chain and actually allow the farmer to access warehouses directly, which allows more returns to go back to the farmers. And the Food National Agency is currently in the process of an agreement to help sell the yield to government enterprises, right? So this isn't just something we just came up with and decided we're going to revolutionize Indonesia. This is the key players in this space in Indonesia coming together and asking for these models to be deployed. Now, the beautiful thing that we realized along the way that I'm also going to implement, we are also going to implement some in phase 2 to phase 3 of this project, is not only will these commodities be shipped directly to a warehouse, which allows more money to come to the farmer, and potentially go directly from the warehouse to government factories and government places where this food is very needed. We're going to take the waste, those rice husks everybody's burning, and turn it into biochar. Because when you turn it into biochar, you can generate carbon offsets, which generates money and incentivizes the farmers to not burn the stuff. Biochar is a natural fertilizer. It's actually the best fertilizer that you can get for plants and for the soils. So it gets rid of artificial fertilizer, and you can produce it at a much lower cost. And then one of our friends, Matt Ross, he mentioned that when you're heating biochar when you're heating biomass to turn it into biochar, whatever material you're using to heat, the smoke from that, you can distill it down, or you can cool it down and then dilute it and turn it into a natural pesticide. So this would get rid of pesticides, which destroy the soils, get rid of fertilizers, imported fertilizers, and give a way better natural fertilizer that actually increases the yield, so the farmer makes more money and the investors make more money. Get rid of organic waste, get rid of pollution, get rid of carbon, allow farmers to access all of these new value models, and that's just on the side of actually shipping these commodities and getting them into the right hands, right? So this is a cohesive way of looking at the problems and solving it with money. Because we know unless you incentivize people with profit, people have to feed their families. And this is why it's also so close to my heart. Because this is figuring out a bunch of problems and solving them in one fell swoop it's a beautiful way of looking at this new model and this new world. And doing it in partnership with these people is the only way that it can be done in Indonesia. So that's 5HarvestO. Okay, simple. You take simple. Yeah, simple. You solve all the problems for the world. Easy peasy. We had it done yesterday. You take farm productivity, turn it into an NFT that allows you access to the 45% of the profits that come out of the next cycle. Okay, but the beautiful thing that happened in the synergies that always happen in Bali is another one of our friends created a project called Farmsent. Okay, friends, and one of them is in the room and one of them is on Zoom. The room in Zoom is going to jump up here soon. They created a project called Farmsent, right? And this project takes commodities from countries and ships them to regions where they're actually valued higher, right? Right now, it's shipping them to the Middle East and North Africa region. But the idea is if you can take the commodity and cut out all the middlemen and on the blockchain, ship it to Saudi Arabia, Dubai, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, all of these countries that have food security issues and they're dying for these solutions, they buy it for multiples above what you can sell it for in Indonesia. Indonesia already has an overabundance of supply. That's why farmers are selling it for bottom barrel prices. And that's why a lot of times food just rots on the trees because farmers can't make enough money for it to be profitable for them to actually harvest a lot of this food. So this project takes the commodities, let's say from that warehouse, and sends it to Dubai and these countries. Sells it for a way higher price. Those countries have their children fed on that side. That higher level of value flows back down the chain on the blockchain without any middlemen taking cuts, back down to the farmers themselves. Okay? And the synergy of these two projects is just, it blows my mind, but it's also part of the process of us working together to solve these problems. So that project is a partnership with Saudi, UAE, which is Dubai and all the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, and Kuwait are the buyers right now. And the goal is to scale this up to a place where it's available to all countries. But these are the countries where the founder himself has good partnerships with them and has worked with the governments to make this process functional. Ethiopia, Switzerland, Zambia, Nigeria, India, and Mozambique are in the process of coming online as buyers of these commodities. Indonesia and Colombia are the two places that are producing right now, as we speak. There's cardamom being grown in Colombia that I was just watching a video from. And in Indonesia, we have all the commodities that they could ever need. But right now, this project is just pre-alpha stage testing. So the systems have been built. There's a few adjustments that need to be made in that process. And we're going to start shipping about 100 SKUs as a test. So 100 different commodities as a test to make this process fully functional. And because these things run on the blockchain, it's very easy to connect them together. So the value can be coded in to flow through this chain back down to the farmers and back down to the people whose lives matter. And you can't have people messing with that process after it's fully built and it's fully secured. What this also allows us to do is this allows full transparency. So now when I eat a mango, I will know where the mango came from. I'll know which field it was picked in and which country it came from, when it left, when it arrived. So the connection that humans can have with their food can be deepened because we will know where the food comes from. and we know who has supported us in that mission of feeding our kids. But it's all about feeding kids, feeding the farmers' kids, feeding the investors' kids, feeding kids in the Middle East and Africa, and then eventually the whole world, okay? It also allows fair access to farmers, because right now, a farmer can't access a market in Dubai, right? Otherwise they would. Or there's 1,000 middlemen in the middle who take all the cuts, and the guy shipping it to Dubai keeps all the money. It allows fairer compensation for them, because now the more value that we're able to generate in Farmsent, the more value that adds to 5HarvestO, the more value goes back to the farmer, and the more value goes back to the investor, who then is generating a great return, who most likely will just put the money back in, and the value just flows up and down the loop, being multiplied on one end, and actually returning fully into your account on the other end. Right? This is part of that circular way of thinking of capital, not just of, economies themselves. And it's, it's basically simplifying this entire process. So Farmsent, can you please go to Farmsent? Let's scroll down. Let's keep going. Right here. Scroll that up. No, down. Sorry, down. Yep, down. More down. Yeah, right here. So this is what normally happens. Farms, middleman, factory, some kind of cooperative that takes the products, shipping, warehousing. There's another warehouse here in Indonesia because the middlemen use. They then deliver it, goes to the market, payment, and then goes to a buyer. And along the way, the farmers get screwed, right? Because they don't have this value flow back all the way. In the new system, farmers, quality control, blockchain-based system that makes this automated and make it function. It goes out to the buyer, and the value flows back from the buyer to the farmer directly. It's just simplifying that entire process and that entire supply chain. So one of the things we also did is we have now, I was going to announce it here first, but actually before the announcement happened, one of our investors took the entire investment. But we have now started the process of buying and selling these commodities, actually becoming the supply chain part of it, right? Because the blockchain-based system is the technology that makes it work. Supply chain is physical shipping and trucking and warehouses that make this process happen. So we have now put $330,000 into buying and selling corn and rice, basically taking it from the farmer. It's not even it's not in these projects yet. This is a side project that we've brought on because there's investors who wanted to generate short-term revenue. Basically, we buy corn and rice from the farmers directly and give it to the factory. Give the farmers back a fairer compensation, and then the investors make 20% in 6 months. And the capital comes back, and the 20% comes back on top, right? So that's part of the process of actually starting the supply chain and managing that whole process while making sure that, investors' money is protected in places that are actually really valuable. So if we scroll down, this is the map of the seller areas, the buyer areas, and the ones that are in discussion. And also, this whole presentation is the explain it like I'm 5 presentation. So it's just going to go through the overview of stuff like we always do. And then the presentation we do in a week is going to be the much more detailed numbers presentation. It's going to give you finer understandings around the value models themselves. But this is how you solve a bunch of problems with code. You can build code that is simple, that gets rid of all of the inefficiencies in the middle, and it compensates both sides as well as possible, right? The other part of it is that it gets rid of middlemen, because people just profiting from taking advantage of underprivileged people is one of the biggest problems in the world. Getting rid of those people and getting rid of that profit motive and only having people who actually add value. We're not going to get rid of all the middlemen because you're going to need the supply chain to actually ship these things. But this will incentivize the ones who actually are able to do it at the right prices and able to do it in a way that we can verify are compensating the farmers the correct way. They will be the ones who win out in this process, and the others will have to figure out a new way to actually add value to people's lives rather than just taking from people who are underprivileged or don't have the opportunity or just don't have the education or access to these things. That's why the Farmers Entrepreneurship Association is such a powerful concept because it allows farmers to access all these complicated things without having to know any of the stuff. We're going to educate them. We're going to onboard them. Even the 1.7 million members that we have in APD are going to be onboarded into Farmsent. So they'll understand how to use these systems, and it's just going to be a basic app where you have rice, you can pop it in there, and then it shows up on the other side of the world. A buyer can buy it, and the whole process gets automated. So those two projects, and then I guess the third revenue stream specifically of the supply chain itself, is where I want to put my money. I don't want to put it in XYZ coin, where it's not backed by anything, it doesn't do anything for anybody's life, and it's just a way to make money. Because money is worthless. Value is valuable, right? Going to sleep knowing, hey, my money is doing something that actually does something to improve the world in many different ways is a way better way of investing in these things. So the third project that I want to mention to you is Sumati Incubator, okay? Because we realized there's a lot of projects like this. Sabdo had been working on his project for years alone with his own team, with his own money, and with his own effort. And he does not need to go out and build his broader team and business development and go to market strategies and go through that entire process of scaling this up. And a lot of these resources don't exist in Indonesia, and they're very expensive. At the same time, Farmsent is sitting on the other side, Bahrain, and he's sitting in Bahrain, which I think Yog is here. Hello from Bali to Bahrain. He's sitting on the other side. He shouldn't have to spend a bunch of money and hire his own set of experts who are also creating a very similar impact. Allowing all of these projects to be supported from the same hub is very important. So that's the model that we presented to the city of Denpasar. We said, we want to run an incubator from the city of Denpasar. And they said, perfect, because we have a building that we're trying to build as the Bali Blockchain Center, and nothing is being done in it. And we've tried to build a community around it, and it just doesn't happen. We'd be happy to let you have that building as long as you build the incubator here. Because the incubator, first of all, is going to provide the resources and the expertise and the consolidation of all the resources that we have in one space so that all of these world-changing projects can be brought to fruition. But even beyond that, what it's actually doing is it's bringing the smartest minds to Denpasar. It's bringing these founders and innovators and developers and experts to Denpasar. And at the same time, remember I said the central government, the Ministry of ICT has given us the talent development pipelines? We're taking that pool of talent that exists in Indonesia and we're connecting it to the incubator. So the talent that exists in Indonesia will be put right alongside the smartest brains from across the world, and the horizontal transfer of information will upgrade the skill sets that exist in the local population. And through a couple of years, we will have a population that is trained in building and developing projects in this new space that nobody understands. And the demand for that is so high. We literally have friends on the other side of the ocean in Silicon Valley, and they're like, you don't understand. The amount of demand that's coming for development in metaverse and blockchain and XR and Web3, it outstrips the supply of developers and people who can actually understand this space. So this incubator is bringing together all those resources, putting these projects inside, bringing them to fruition, using the knowledge base that exists from these founders, putting the talent development, basically the talent development is happening in a way that there's one of our friends is starting a registered university, a certified university from Australia that's gonna train the local population and certify them in these different technologies. They come in as interns and they learn from the greatest people or the smartest people that we can find who are actually building the way that we want. And then they can actually get jobs and eventually build their own projects to make this process happen. But on the investor side of things, this incubator is actually going to get up to 8% of the equity and 8% of the founders' tokens from these projects put inside the incubator. So the incubator basically becomes like an investment vehicle. It's like an ETF of impact projects where every project that it incubates, 8% of the value is custodied inside of the incubator itself. And as it incubates more and more projects, more and more equity and more tokens are added into the incubator itself. The equity makes the value of the incubator grow, which makes the value of the investment grow. But when we tokenize, because all these projects are going to be tokenized, and those tokens are going to generate dividends, right? So the tokens get some of the profits that are coming from these value models given back to the investors who are holding the tokens. And the percentage of tokens that are held by the incubator will pay out those dividends to investors who are holding the token from the incubator itself. So it becomes like a ETF, if that's what you understand, or it becomes an investment vehicle which grows over time, and the initial investors have continuous value that gets added into their investment over the long term. So that's solving, I don't even know how many problems in one, right? So hopefully by now you can understand that our goal is to solve as many problems as we can in a way that generates a return for investors themselves. So before I talk too much, because I always talk too much sometimes, I would love for you to meet these founders. So first, I just want to bring up Sabdo. He's a legend. So he's a farmer, he's a friend who has dedicated his life to changing farmers' lives. If you want to please give an intro and just explain how 5HarvestO started and what's going on. Oh yeah, we'll also get you a mic.
Sure. Okay. Hello everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So I'm Sabdo. When I'm starting this project is basically when I see like many problems in the harvesting. Like farmer is like the poorest people in Indonesia, because farmer is not an entrepreneur. Mostly they are a labor and they doesn't have any land. And because of that, they also have like in one village, usually they have like 2 or 3 people who very rich, and they are the middlemen. And somehow they also have the land for some people. So I'm just thinking about how we can change this, because like in Indonesia, 70% of this economy only running in Jakarta. How about if we can spread it in each village all around Indonesia, because we have like 74,000 more villages all around in Indonesia. It will be more beautiful, and I think it will be like a prosperity for all if this can be happen. So this is when I'm starting to thinking about 5HarvestO, and then first of all, we're just doing this like manually, because I'm also a farmer. We help some farmer. We have like a half of hectare of land to have a melon. We give them our fertilizer using the organic, and then give them the fair market directly to the Jakarta. And after 2 years, from this half of hectare, he now like have like 3 houses, because he already have like 3 wives. Can you imagine it? Only for half of hectare. And then we're doing it again with the chicken. And then because I love to reading, I think about the blockchains coming, and I'm just thinking about some people just coming, hey Sabdo, I have like 5,000 hectare of land. How you want to go to, and how we can manage this? And then I remember that in the discussion, I'm just read a newspaper, and then I seen that Zuckerberg talking about Meta, and I'm just thinking about, okay, we can get loan from the bank with the KUR, like Sim say with Mandiri and BSI. It's just like a loan for the farmer from the government with little interest. But I think for you guys, it's still big, because it's like around 7% a years. In Indonesia, it's so small. This interest is so small, because in Indonesia, in average, if you want a loan for your business, you can get like 11% interest a years. More than 20%. Yep. I have like a real case, like one farmer, tomato farmer in Bandung. He have a kid. Until this kid going in the college, they still have the debt from this same loan shark. Can you imagine it? It's just like more than 15, 20 years. So I remember like in Clifford Gert, some social science have research about the farming in all around Indonesia, Java and Bali only. And they said with one hypothesis, he said is sharing poverty. So when people in Indonesia doing harvesting, they sharing their poverty, because this system, this debt system, the bad pricing, and in a years, mostly in Indonesia, they will be damage your price like under your cost producing. So when the farmer get the pricing so bad, they just will be get to their own field and then they will be just spread their yield as a fertilizer because they don't have any money to buy any fertilizer anymore. This is the problem. And this is always happen. And I'm going to B20 yesterday. They said they have sustainable business forum. They said they have many innovation business. And that's not solution at all. Because they're doing it in the higher level and they're never going to the bottom. This is the problem. So that's why we trying to work from the grassroots. We're talking with the farmer itself. We're grouping as innovative and we create our association. Why? Because in Indonesia, you're talking as a Sabdo, as a same as you guys, you are nothing. But when we talking as an association, we have big number of person, we can change the regulation. And that's what I'm doing in the first. And after that, just thinking about the metaverse, I'm just thinking it will be cool if I have my own metaverse, when I have my own game, when I play in my metaverse, and then it will be happen in the real world. Just simple like that, and just I'm thinking about 5HarvestO. Then we're running, accidentally, I'm going to Ubud, meet with Sim, meet with Cleveland, listen. I'm even in the first, I don't even confirm that my idea can be real, or my idea is like a big solution. No, I don't have any idea of that. I'm just thinking I just imagination it. I'm not even thinking about it, I think. If I think again, I'm not thinking about it. I just imagination about that. When our farmer, our member can have a cold reserve of money, and then he can grow out their own plant, and we can create, like I said, fair trade community for the food. So everybody can get the access, and everybody can know how much cost the price for the real. Because for example, I have like essential oil from the clove. In the farmer, you can buy like 115,000 rupiah a liter. And then the guy from Singapore will buy it for 1 million rupiah. And then the people from Singapore will be selling it to Europe for like 3 or 5 million rupiah. It's so stupid. And this has happened like yearly. Mostly Malaysia and Singapore become a middleman of Indonesia. This has happened for a yearly. Many years, and people doesn't know that. So somebody need to doing a little step to change it, or there will never be a change at all. So this is about 5HarvestO, because I think Sim is already explained it very good, and I think it's already like complete. So yes.
And also, can you please also just shed some light on APD? What is APD? How did the vision come to you? What has it turned into? And what's the goal?
Oh, okay. So basically, APD was me and my brother was like a consultant for the Ministry of Village. So we're working with all village, and we were in the past ministry have program. We said like Frucades is like the main productivity of the village, because mostly like 60% of village in Indonesia is in agriculture. We also have like a fishing village and anything like mine village also. So we being the consultant with the ministry, and we just said like, we see like there are many not working at the field. So we just thinking about how if we make the organization, we can accommodate all heroes in all village, all initiative in all village in one organization with the private. Why it's private and not in government? Because if we become a government, we'll be corrupted because like the government money. So we like in December, APD will have a 3 years old, and then we already have like 32 province, our representative, and till this day, we never doing government fund. We're doing this with our own money and our own business. So we have like partner from China to export our product. Some people in Malaysia also. So we're doing this, and we creating money for our organization based on the business itself. Even the project is like a social empowerment, But we never doing the government of fund of government. But when we have our initiative and we want to doing the ceremonial thing, we always invite the government. Although they don't give the money, they give the support, we don't care. We just need the exposure. because when the ministry coming, and this is why we very have good name in all ministry and all around Indonesia, because mostly association in Indonesia is created based on the political will or political business. We don't have any that. And then mostly the association in all around Indonesia just ask the government for the fund each year. They want to donation and anything, but we never been there. We just give the project, we give them the solution. Although it's very small one, not a big one. It's just like small, like for a couple of farmer and anything. But they like it. And then we have like many of print of our digital work filled in the Google. You just click, you just write APD in Google and you will be see all our news and our initiative in the website. That's what APD is. And then maybe next year we want to have like our first national conference. And we also want to make like exhibition for like commodities. I want to make it bigger, and it will like become with ETS, you know, like for awarding for the village. Probably we will have like next year in October, hopefully. Maybe with Indover Summit. It will be cool.
Yeah, let's do it.
It will be cool with Indover Summit. Yeah,
amazing,
maybe
bro.
that's a little bit already.
Listen, thank you for doing what you do.
Thanks.
You're a legend. You're a genuine legend. Seriously.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for the session.
So
I'm back to.
yeah, you can hang out if you want.
Yeah.
Or you can go back up and you can
No.
tell us more about stuff. These changes will be these public-private partnerships that will actually create the change, because that's what's required. You can't do it with one side or the other. But the real impact is going to happen on the ground, like Sabdo said. It's people from the ground who've raised, crops in the ground, in the soil itself, who understand what a farmer's life is, who understand the trials and tribulations they go through, that will come up with the solutions. And it's beautiful that you actually took the initiative to bring it to fruition. And it's beautiful that we met, because we all have to share our knowledge and skill sets and resources to allow these visions to come to fruition, right? And what I love about you is the heart. The moment I met you, I saw your heart, and I saw how dedicated you are to bringing this to every single person who actually needs it out there, not from a place of money, not from a place of building something, from a place of improving people's lives in a fundamental way. People who are just like us, they're our friends, our family. This beautiful land has given us so much. It's time for us to give back in this process. So thank you so much. The next set of founders I want to bring up is the Farmsent founders. We have one in the room, Mr. Cleveland. If you want to please come up. He's another legend that I'm so glad to bring into our circle and our family and everything. And then we have Yog, who's going to be on Zoom. Mr. Yogstar, are you with us? Earth to Yog, calling Mr. Yog Shrusti. All right, so while we're finding Yog, Cleveland, if you just want to give a bit of an intro of who you are, how Farmsent started, how you got involved, what the vision is, and just please let us know what it is.
Yes. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Microphone is okay? Microphone is okay? All right. So, hello everyone. My name is Cleveland Brown. I'm one of the founders of Farmsent and also one of the founders of the Sumati concept. I think to kind of zoom out a bit and then go into Farmsent makes a bit more sense, because then Yag will come on and he'll be able to go into more detail about how Farmsent actually operates. But from
Is not here apparently, so please.
is that okay?
Yeah, all you.
So the Sumati concept is it's as we were saying before, as we mentioned, it's an impact organization. So we ourselves, our focus is to bring impact and to also support projects that will do the same. We have infrastructure projects. We have, let's say, metaverse and tech-based projects as well. And then we've also got the Sumati Incubator, which is, as we were speaking before, responsible for producing the next generation of solutions and professionals. Because as Sim likes to say, we're incubating people and we're also incubating projects. So one of the first offerings to come through the Sumati Incubator is Farmsent. And as Sim mentioned, we are using Farmsent to optimize the supply chain for farmers. I think currently farmers make 10% or less on the produce that they bring to market. With Farmsent, what we want to do is provide them with hubs that handle packaging and distribution, let's say, and also expose the farmers to new markets, as Sim mentioned, across the globe. The farmers would grow their produce, bring it to us, and then, as I said, through our optimized supply chain and the resources that we offer through Farmsent, we can then make sure that the farmer is making, let's say, upwards of 80% on what they're producing. I can use vanilla as an example. Here in Bali, we have embarrassment of vanilla available to us. Vanilla itself per pod is probably $2 to $3 for us here locally. Those same vanilla pods, when they go to the Middle East or into other markets, they're upwards of $28, $32. So, for instance, when we go to our buyers in the Middle East, if we can offer them prices anything lower than $28 for the pods of vanilla, they're willing to pay years ahead, right? So this now is allowing farmers here in Indonesia, instead of just making rupiah, they can be making dollars and dinar from other parts of the world. This now would strengthen the Indonesian economy and obviously put more food on the farmers' tables. Why are we supporting farmers? Because farmers are the backbones of any economy. Agriculture is the backbone of any economy. So some of our efforts reach to, as Sim mentioned, government level partnerships and the initiatives that allow us to move legislation and regulation in the direction that we need it to go in order to start to bring these new technologies to market. So on one end, as Sabdo mentioned, we have the bottom-up approach, where we're dealing with things from a grassroots level with the actual farmers, giving them what they need in order to be able to produce more and make more money on their produce. But then also on the other side of things, we're working with government entities, right? We're working with government entities in order to push the legislation and the conversation in the directions that we need, in order to then, on the other end, provide the solutions that are coming through the Sumati Incubator. Right? The Sumati Incubator becomes an investor's opportunity to invest in a number of projects continuously instead of a single project at once. Right? This, I think, is something very important to mention from an investment perspective. Farmsent specifically, as we mentioned, is seeking just to empower farmers. We want to make sure that farmers become, or to do farming becomes desirable, let's say, right? This is, these are steps that we're taking toward food security globally, I mean, which is an initiative of the UN, which trickles down into, concerns for every country. How are we going to secure food on the tables for the families that we need to provide for? So this is where Farmsent now becomes a real model of how we can start to tie real world assets to digital tokens, let's say, right? So instead of just speaking about, blockchain technologies, cryptocurrencies, these sorts of things, we're actually giving you an application, right, for these technologies, which this is more useful in the long run. If you want to invest, you want to invest in something that's bringing real value and real utility into people's lives. So we're supporting systems that serve people instead of people serving systems, which is a lot of what we've seen in recent years.
That's beautiful, because I just want to highlight what you just said there. Systems working for us rather than people working for systems.
Yes.
Right? The world that we're transitioning into, algorithms run people's lives. Companies and tech run people's lives.
Yes.
Right now, millions of dollars, billions of dollars have been lost because some computers had a fake coin on it called FTX. Whereas this way of building systems that serve people, and the people are at the core of it, is the real revolution that we bring using all of these systems. So I always just love that when you say that.
Yes. So, yeah. So, real world value, impact projects, and then also the Sumati concept itself. There's no there's nothing that's sustainable moving ahead that doesn't focus on or function from the tenets of diversity, inclusivity, and empathy, right? If there's anything that these, let's say, recent events, COVID, other things that have happened globally, it's shown us, one, that we're all in this together, right? And that two, we're going to have a next generation, a new ways of doing things, right? So we're not just focused on bringing new products to market or bringing new companies to market. We're focused on creating new markets, new ways of doing the things that we've already been doing, right? And also making the technology more available, right? To make sure that we don't contribute to, you know, what would they call it? Digital, yes, digital colonialism, or also those who are less likely to have access to the technology. We want to promote instead, you know, digital autonomy. We want to put the technologies into the hands of the people that can actually use it, right? So this is, you know, a bit about the Sumati concept. I'm sure that Lysen will come and fill it in a bit more.
So let's just on the point of Farmsent. First of all, I love you. Okay.
Peace out.
His heart walks into the room before he walks into the room, which is beautiful. But you know, knowing that there's, you know, you being a developer, you being able to understand the nitty gritty of what actually happens behind the wall of blockchain, having that then being brought to the forefront and being able to present these solutions is so powerful, because the rest of us are dummies in that space, right? So that's absolutely beautiful. Yoga's not here; he's busy helping farmers, I bet. So as we mentioned, Sumati is the culmination, is the conglomeration of all of these ideas together. And the Sumati Incubator is just a tiny little piece of the bigger vision of Sumati, right? Because I would love for Lysen to come up, and actually let's introduce Lysen, please. This is one of our best founders. You stay up here as well, because you guys are the founders of Sumati. So actually, we need to give you a mic. So please, can you please describe your journey of getting to Sumati? What is at the core of Sumati, and what is the vision of Sumati?
So, hello everyone. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Lysen Christiansen, pronounced in my native Norwegian. And Sumati concept was something that was, I would say, born through me in 2018. And I was working in waste management in Norway back then. Private corporate sector waste management as a project manager, had a background in art. So for the first year in that company, everybody just referred to me as the artist. I started to think that there is something more. Working in waste management, sustainability, circular economy, all of these terms was something that we were all talking about every day. But what does it really mean? And what does it come down to? How can we actually create the impact that we really want to achieve? And what it comes down to is people. It's part of people. You can't make any kind of shift if you don't have the people with you. So working in a corporate sector and really trying to change things on a big scale from top down, it doesn't work if we don't have the people with us. So when I started thinking about, you know, the circular economy and what that really means and social responsibility, it came into 4 pillars: the individual social responsibility, personal social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, and then global social responsibility. So Sumati concept, in many ways, derives from this. It's how we can actually make an impact, looking at it from not a singular reality and singular industry of like, or government initiatives or corporate initiatives. No, we need to look at it as a whole. This is what really circular economy is. And that is also what Sumati concept is in many ways about. It's a concept. It's a way of life. And it's how we actually build businesses, how we can make what Sim has been talking about and Cleveland has been talking about, like that impact, that real life impact. So Sumati is a feminine Sanskrit word, and it's two words put together, Su and Mati. Su is wisdom of the heart, because it means to be good. Mati is mind thought, so the wisdom of the mind. We need both. We need the heart, but we also need the theory, the strategy. So since 2018, I started researching how cultures were functioning around the world, ancient times, in present time, and also how the modern Western strategies were functioning. Taking a look at, for example, design thinking and the 4 concepts of design thinking. It starts with the immersion process, the analysis process, the ideation, the design, and then the implementation. You can actually flip that around and look at that how we actually function as well. We do an immersion of ourselves. We have to analyze ourselves. Then we can go into the ideation of how is this going to look like if I'm going to change my life or change, a business. Then you go into the design, and then you go into implementation. But it's a constant loop because it's never ending. Even if you have gone into your implementation, you put the product out of market, you change your life for good. Okay, so then now what? You constantly have to go back into the immersion stage and constantly develop. So yes, Sumati is, in many ways, it's based on the ancient principles from around the world, combined with modern business strategies such as design thinking, lean map, and others. So,
Could you also mention about like those?
Yeah. So specific philosophies that Sumati is built upon as well is Trihatha. Of course, we're in Bali, and when also building Sumati concept and doing the research behind it, the concept and the business model behind it, I was working in waste management. I was a yoga teacher. I was talking about how we needed to look at environment and our holistic self and our personal development in combination. But sitting in Norway and doing this by myself, I realized I'm not supposed to be here and I'm not supposed to do this alone. Sumati concept goes way beyond me. It was never meant to be. So having been in Bali many times, I felt a calling to come to Bali. I knew that I had to come to Bali to develop it. Then the beauty of it brought amazing, beautiful people into my life. Sim, Cleveland, Shruti, who is the founder of Farmsent, and we also have another partner, Farmsent in California. And when I started talking about Sumati concept to these guys, it just clicked. It's like, okay, now the team has been set. All the pieces have finally come together. Because again, if we're going to create anything, creating kind of change, we have to work together, right? So that is also what Sumati concept is. Here we are in Bali and working on the incubator, because Sumati concept is not deploying projects. It's not an incubator program in the way that many incubator programs run, of a set time limit, a set coursework that you have to go through. We select projects based on the people. We believe in people. We don't say, okay, of course we believe in the projects too, but it comes down to the people. And not only the entrepreneurs and founders behind it themselves, but how can the project in itself change the life for the people? So when we take the projects on, we also look at how the projects have a synergy between them. So Sim has been talking about Farmsent and 5HarvestO specifically because those two projects are the perfect example of how we can create a complete ecosystem. So that through Sumati, we don't just take the projects on, take them through the whole pipeline, give them consulting, do the design work, give them the investment, and then they're out the door. If they become part of Sumati Concept, the incubator, they become part of the lifestyle that we're creating together globally. So we always look at how this can actually have a global scale.
Amazing.
Yes.
Thank you for being another amazing soul. And it's just beautiful to see these hearts come together. Right? It's like, it feeds my soul to know that there's a bunch of crazies who've been thinking about this in a corner. Then you bring them together into a room and we get shit done. Okay?
And also just want to add that Sumati is also, we talk a lot about agro-tech here today, but Sumati is based on environment, it's based on art and design, of health and well-being, education, and then tying it all together with the technology of blockchain. Because if we want to also create any kind of change, we need the creative thinking. So creativity and art, like I mentioned, I worked in waste management, but my background is in art. So art, I had people like asking me, how did you even get a job in waste management, building a scrap metal shredder facility, being in art school or coming from art school? And it comes down to the creative mind. It's not that you have to have gone a certain, lineage. If you have to go to a certain school and then you get a certain job and then that's it. Life doesn't work like that anymore. Like we're rethinking and redoing new ways, right? That's what it's all about. So creativity is at the source of it because for any innovation to happen, we need the creative mind. So even like with education and that we now have partnerships with the Bali Blockchain Center and the incubator there, speaking to university students here in Denpasar of all of these different things, because we need to not only say that we go and talk about technology, no, but there's all these other aspects to it. Like how can we actually bridge all of these different industries together, whether it is in finance, whether it is in IT, whether it's in the health sector or the creative arts sector, waste management. All of these things needs to come to the table together. And that is also what Sumati Concept is. Like we're facilitating these conversations of bringing these people together through these industries, through the network that we have globally in Norway in waste management, with the bilateral agreement signed with Norway and Indonesia in just last 2 months. Same thing with Nigeria. Nigeria just 2 weeks ago signed a bilateral agreement with Indonesia in terms of trading. So we're working with all of these countries as well to actually deploy new talent, educate new talent, and educate people about the new ways of doing things.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you.
Let's see, we still need them.
I mean, you can hang out up here if you want. I like having you up here. It's really nice. We're like the dynamic duo, presenting stuff. Thank you. I love it.
No worries.
So that's how it's done, I think, in the future. The future isn't this cold computers and tokens and things that don't exist in the real world, that don't have heart, that don't have soul, that don't have people at the core. It's people dedicating our lives to bringing to life things that actually impact other beautiful people's lives. Karmically speaking, that's the best thing that we can do. right? That's what we should be doing. But I know you touched on Three Hitakarana, but the concept of Three Hitakarana, the fact that it's harmony with nature. It's not just protecting nature or saving nature. It's living in a way where you are there's a synchronicity between you and nature, right? The synchronicity between driving everything from that and then coming up with solutions around that. And then it's a harmony with spirit, harmony with that, whatever the higher thing is, whatever name you want to give it, that is the background that makes this whole thing run. And bringing all those three things into fruition and actually manifesting it it's not a simple task, but we're sure as hell going to do it. Okay, so thank you guys for presenting. Thank you, Subdo. It's been a pleasure being able to take everybody through that process. And the way the revenue models or the economics of these projects work is right now, these projects are already working, right? The partnerships have been built. They're already functioning. The Sumati Incubator is already incubating projects. Real Earth Elements was one of the first projects that has already been brought to fruition. The mines are running. The token is about to be launched. The technology is live. Farmsent, the technology has already been built. It's being finalized. It's going to go live soon, and the testing is going to start. 5HarvestO is already at the harvest stage and harvesting on a smaller scale, but it's going to be scaled up as we go further. So these are things that have already been brought into reality. So what we're offering right now is basically multi-piece offering. The equity from these projects is available as investment, and the equity will come with a simple agreement for future tokens, which is the same thing we did for Real Earth Elements. Basically, whoever invests into the equity of these tokens will get an agreement for an equivalent amount of founders tokens that will be issued once the actual project is tokenized fully, right? So the details around that are that for 5HarvestO, it's 5% of the equity that is being offered for $500,000. For as long as we can remember. When you tokenize a project, the token will be a dividend yielding token. So some of the profits from the project will go back to the token holders who stake the token itself. Same model as what we did for Real Earth Elements. It will likely be a registered security, but there might be models that we've determined which don't require for us to register it as a security. For Farmsent, it's 4% of the equity that's being offered for $500,000. Same thing, 4% of the founders tokens will also be promised to the same investors who actually own the equity of the token, equity of the company itself. For Sumati, it's 10% that's being offered for $1.15 million because we need more capital to bring that to fruition. But the 10% of the founders tokens will also be guaranteed back to the investors who actually invest in the Sumati concept itself, specifically the Sumati Incubator, which is live right now. With Sumati, the value add benefit is once you invest, the equity of the project will keep growing as more and more projects are incubated within the incubator itself. More and more tokens will be added into the Sumati Incubator itself. Around 8% of each project, depending on the size of the project, will be added as equity and as founders tokens into the incubator itself. And then when the incubator is tokenized, all of the revenue that's generated, or a large percentage of the revenue that's generated from the tokens, will be passed on to the token holders of the incubator itself. Our goal is to take this money, which is pennies compared to what traditional business models like to raise. Our goal is to take this money and make these projects fully functional, because these are profitable models already. 5HarvestO is already generating a profit. Farmsent is going to generate ridiculous amounts of profit, taking $3 vanilla and selling it for $30. Sumati is going to generate revenue from all of these different projects. So our goal is to take this small amount, use our consolidation of resources, use our own time, use our own network of people that we have who are dedicated to these missions to bring them to fruition. So we don't have to go out to VCs and raise $20 million. Because the moment you go to VCs and you start to raise $20 million, the next thing that they're going to want is growth at all cost, where the ethos and the ethics get destroyed. It will go to VCs eventually, but only the ones that we select, the ones who are actually aligned with our mission of creating the impact on the ground, and nothing can compromise that. The VCs are already ready to go, but our own community is going to make this process function. But even more than the money, what I really want to ask for today is your time, your energy, your skill sets, your networks, Now you've seen this is not small time stuff, and it's going to take a lot of experts for us to bring this to fruition. We have our own networks already. Gladly, with Sumati Incubator, we have a huge network of experts and skill sets that we can deploy in the space. But if you're somebody who knows how to help in this process, and if you're somebody who resonates with this way of doing things, please contribute your time. Please contribute your energy. You will be compensated, especially on the long end. You will be compensated happily and healthily throughout the process. But please help us bring these to fruition, or we're going to bring them to fruition anyway. Okay? Now, the details around all these things will be presented in the next meeting. So we'll bring you actual numbers, results, the finer details of explain it like I'm 15 rather than explain it like I'm 5 meeting, which we're going to hold on Wednesday, which is going to be the next meeting that we actually hold. But I just want to close off on the idea that these kind of visions, you have to dedicate yourself to them. You have to have amazing, intelligent, smart people who want to create an impact and who want to create a change, dedicating their life to it. You know, the day that we were sitting there and 5HarvestO and Farmsent and Sumati, we were all having a discussion around how these models come together. I remember the distinct feeling, first time in my life this has happened this distinctly. My body welled up and all my cells said yes. And they said, ignore all the other things. I have 1,000 opportunities to build a bunch of other things that'll make me a shit ton more money. Who cares? You know, doing something that my being is saying, this is something worth doing. And this is something that feeds people and educates people and up-levels people and uplifts people. I'm going to dedicate my life to this. At least the next 2 years, this is going to be one of my singular focuses. Bringing these visions to reality that are already real, but bringing them to a scale that is global, right? If you're somebody who does that, please reach out, because that is more valuable to us. Because you're somebody smart, and you may be, you know, a business development person like we were talking about, Bradley, or whatever skill set you have that's been useful in the traditional world, bringing it to this space and deploying it in this new space. Not only does it bring these visions to fruition, it also adds value back to you, because now you're operating in a blue ocean. You're operating in a new space, which requires this to be done 1,000 times over. All models are going to go to the blockchain eventually over the next 8 years. It's also about showing love. We're in Bali. Let's just talk about love. All right? It's about showing love. This is our way of showing love. There's a lot of people who want change in the world. We all want change in the world. And oftentimes it's hard to know, okay, what exactly do I do? Okay, these are our missions, and they have so much space for you to show love and come together. And the more we share it, the more the world changes into a world based on love and care and fairness. And it's coded into the systems themselves. That's the other beautiful opportunity that we have, that it doesn't have to be something that we just talk about. You can audit the code and see exactly how much goes to the farmer. You can see exactly who has access to all of these things. There's complete transparency around these things. And for me, it's about giving back. Because Bali has given me so much and us so much. We're sitting here on a Tuesday. That means, you know, we're at a certain stage in life. We don't need more. What we need is to share more and take care more. And in simple terms, this is my legacy. I've spent the last 2 years educating about this stuff. That's why we started building these things 2 years ago, real world asset-backed tokens that you can verify are not going to take your money and run away like FTX. That's one piece of it. But it's leaving a legacy of a world that works better, that works in harmony with nature, that works in harmony with people, and it allows everybody who's involved in the process to prosper. Like, that's why when Sabdo says prosperity for all, that resonates. Because everybody deserves to eat good food. Everybody deserves to have enough to be able to live properly without them being taken advantage of, especially those people who always get taken advantage of, who don't know how to do all of these things. Okay? So I'm not going to talk too much. Thank you for attending. Love you all. And now we'll open it up for a question and answer session. If you have questions, please send them our way. And we have a mic somewhere here that... Who's up? Who wants to be a rock star? Fine. Do we have any questions on Zoom? So again, we reached out to all the people who would be interested in this. They're either in this room, or they're on Zoom, or they are going to watch this recording. So if you watch this and this is something that interests you and you would like to participate further, please reach out to us. Let us know what it is that you'd like to contribute. The next meeting, which is going to be on Wednesday from 11 to 1, is where we're going to present the finer details of all these models, and you'll have time to digest those. Yeah, so Wednesday next week is going to be that meeting. Tomorrow's meeting is actually going to focus on explaining how to navigate a bear market and how to protect yourself from things like the FTX collapse, so we can have a finer understanding of what are the problems that exist in the traditional blockchain and crypto space, what happened, why it always causes this process of people losing a bunch of money, how not to lose money, and how to understand partially these models and other models that can actually protect wealth rather than destroy wealth. Yes.
Thank you, Sim. Thank you for everyone that spoke. Very much aligned with what was shared here today and the values that you guys embody. We're very aligned in that way. I'm just curious about Sumati and the incubator. It sounds like you've got a lot going on, and you guys obviously goals that you in every way, but particularly from a technology point of view and a people point of view with regards to the incubator and whatever the next steps are. Thanks.
Okay, so
It's on. It's on. You just got to hold it closer because he has a deep baritone voice.
testing. So yes, thank you for the question. So when entities come into the Sumati Incubator, right, you have what they would first go through as like a consulting phase. The consulting phase allows us to, let's say, identify how it is that they're coming to us and exactly what they need to be infused with in order to bring them to where they would like to go. When I say where they would like to go, ultimately, once they've left us, we want to make sure that they have an MVP, or that they have a proof of concept that, they're ready to go to market. From there, we can help them to handle investment and these things as well. To take a step back, in the actual incubation process, there are a number of, let's say, leading global services and major players within the blockchain space that we tie the projects into that then become resources to them, right? We have design, we have marketing, we have front-end and back-end development. We have entire teams that are already operating, specifically in Bahrain, in the Middle East, through one of our founders, through Shusti, that are able to, as we say, provide the projects with the resources that they need in order to advance them along. So what we want to achieve, because of where conversations are between the Sumati concept, entities here in Indonesia, but also entities in other parts of the globe, we're using the incubator to open the channels through which the solutions can be going to different environments. We could give Nigeria as an example. We could give the incubator here, let's stay here as an example. We will facilitate not only the growth of Indonesian projects, but also we'll bring foreign talent into Indonesia. So we'll actually contribute to knowledge sharing, right? Which then helps to build what's available here in Indonesia, first of all, right? But then also exposing the projects and things to global, to global talent and resources. So what we want to achieve in the short term, what we do is there are funding comes into the incubator, right? Sometimes into individual projects, but most of the time infused into the projects through the incubator. The incubator chooses batches of projects based upon their readiness, right? So let's say in the first batch of projects, we have 3 main focuses: Farmsent, 5HarvestO, And there are actually, let's say, 14 other projects that are at different stages that are along the way of coming through the incubator as well, right? So in that first,
And actually, there, yeah,
yes,
yeah. So
yes,
these three projects are the Real Earth Elements, 5HarvestO, and Farmsent are the three projects that we're incubating right now. Especially because we don't want to expose capital unless we've tested this whole process with our own projects. But also, our network of experts are going to participate in that incubation process. So project comes in, and they go through that consulting process. They've been vetted. They get added into a pipeline of projects. And once they're actually being incubated, then they're actually introduced to different experts, kind of like how we talked about, where there's multiple different ways of doing it. If there's somebody who's interested in going full-time and dedicating themselves to this mission, then they're brought on officially as an employee or a partner, and they work full-time in the project and they're compensated that way. Or there are consultants and business development people or marketers, developers. They would actually sit with the projects and dedicate some time up front to analyze the project and give some kind of strategy, let's say, of what the project can do and what that expert can provide for the project itself. That allows someone like yourself to actually meet the projects and vet them and find out which ones you want to work with and which ones you may not be, as part of your kind of repertoire. Then the projects are taken through the process and they get to a stage where we do raise the capital for the projects, and that capital is then deployed back into those same experts to bring them officially onto the projects once the introductions have been made. And that global network of experts and the incubation process, where not only are we focusing on the project itself, we're developing the humans, right? This was a point that kind of got missed in what Leeson said, is developing the internal state of the founders themselves and getting them to a point where they can execute a project of the scale that they're envisioning. Then the network of experts and the network of human developers get to a point where it's ready to be brought to scale, let's say. An MVP gets created, and then we do the same thing. We just try to use the minimum amount of capital up front to bring, and then it gets introduced through the VC networks and the larger players and the banks, so that if we do need to go out and raise 20, 30, 50, $100 million for a project, they take over and take them from the incubation stage through the acceleration stage to the growth stage. So if you're somebody who can be part of that process, it's beautiful because we're bringing deal flow, of impact projects, which you may not realize exist out there. We're making the introductions. You get to see if you want to participate in it and choose what that participation looks like.
So Sumati is new in that sense, as a means by which we can get the resources and the investment to the projects that need it. But the resources themselves and the track record and the history of projects completed and the projects that we've been involved in, blockchains that we've launched here in Indonesia, there's a bit to be able to sink your teeth in as an investor to understand why we've chosen to approach things in this way and what right we have to do so at this point. Why we've chosen to do so.
He's a humble man, so he won't say this himself. He brought the ECTA blockchain to fruition. He's one of the original co-founders who actually helped bring that blockchain to fruition and make it successful. And every expert has already done their kind of tour of duty to prove out that they're at a certain scale to be able to help these projects come to fruition.
Farmsent itself, if you were to look at it from a pure investment perspective, in grading Farmsent on a scale, 100% would be an A, of course. Farmsent gets a 90%, just because at the time when it was graded, it wasn't fully ready to go to market. But in terms of it being a viable investment, because of how it's tied into agriculture, government initiatives, the level of investment that's already ready to go into Farmsent, that's there's viability in the projects themselves, but then also in the incubator as it's the one facilitating the projects, partners.
I also just wanted to add that, as Cleveland mentioned,
In the pipeline of the incubator. Yeah.
it's also into development of the entrepreneur themselves. Because this is oftentimes why a project fails, is because the entrepreneur, the business owner, is not is not there and not ready themselves to actually take on what it really means, right, to develop. So we also, through the Bali Blockchain Center on the short term, because Bali Blockchain Center is also developing their own incubator program, but they have a 6-month program. So Sumati Incubator is on the panel to select projects to come through the Bali Blockchain Center incubator. That is going to be starting in first quarter of 2023. After they have gone through the 6-month incubation at the Bali Blockchain Center, then we also then select projects that we will deploy into the Sumati Incubator to develop further. So in this way, we're also developing the local talent and working with Indonesian and Denpasar, the city of Denpasar in particular. In the long term as well, what we're doing, and Cleveland briefly mentioned it in the presentation, that we're developing our own infrastructure as well. So we already have secured some pieces of land here in Bali, where we're building out the Sumati Concept campus and incubator. So the campus will be a research and development facility, and one of its first of its kind with XR development studios in Bali as well. So having Farsam as one of our co-founders in Sumati and is an XR expert in the States, we're bringing this talent also here, so that is another source as well, and kind of more the long-term goal of like how we're also developing Bali as the epicenter of these type of projects, tying in with the blockchain and extended reality, but with waste management, with agriculture, these kind of industries that has for a really long time struggled with corruption, with kind of the low range in terms of salaries, in terms of even like attracting new talent and young talent to those industries, because of how they've been viewed. So that is also kind of the long-term goal of what we're doing through the incubator, and why we're speaking specifically in terms of those industries as well.
And to that point, that's why I just wanted to mention the incubator, because it's a digestible little piece of Sumati. But beyond that, there's going to be physical locations built, which are going to be real estate plays. Those are going to be tokenized, which are going to be semi-token real estate plays that are going to be available for investment for people. The studios themselves are going to be turned into as a service platforms. So tokenization as a service, Sumati as a service. The experts that are coming in, they will be offered as resources in these services. So maybe projects and people come along who do need tokenization, they do need development, they do need business development as a service. So again, in the consolidation of resources, the experts will be able to access the deal flow that comes into these broader spaces, and those physical spaces will be locations that will foster all of this development and technology and all this kind of stuff. So thank you. We already have some people who want to get in touch with you. So Joseph, yes, we will share the contact of the Sumati Incubator team, specifically in the Telegram group that we have. So if you're in there, please join. Otherwise, we'll post a link that you can join. Looking forward to collaborating with Sumati. Feel like we already have beautiful people reaching out. The question is 5HarvestO investment only available in IDR or USD as well? So the investment into technically speaking, we do have to make all the investments in IDR simply because of the legal infrastructure or the legal regulations that exist within Indonesia, but obviously you can transfer USD and convert it into IDR. The returns will be in IDR, which IDR is actually one of the strongest currencies out there. Euro has lost insane amounts of value. Yen has lost insane amounts of value. The British pound fell off of a complete cliff. Many of them lost around 30% of value in the last year. The Indonesian rupiah lost 1/15 of its value against the US dollar. But the investments are made in IDR and the returns are provided in IDR. What would be the process? Basically the same thing that we did with Real Earth Elements. There is an agreement. In this case, it would actually be an agreement for you to get equity as well as tokens. The agreement is a safe, simple agreement for future equity. And in this case, depending on which project it is, if it's already live, you would simply get an equity agreement. And you get a SAFT, a simple agreement for future tokens, which provides you the tokens once the tokenization has happened. And then you're able to transfer the funds, and then your name is effectively added to. If you're an equity investor, your name gets added to the actual project itself as a shareholder. So you get that shareholding. Directly purchase the NFT from the site. So this is actually an interesting. There's multiple different ways to participate in 5HarvestO. So you could purchase equity if you're a long-term investor and you're looking to get the tokens themselves, or you could just buy the NFTs themselves, which will give you access to the profits that come out of the next cycle. So there's multiple different ways of doing it. When is the next investor meeting? It's going to happen next Wednesday from 11 to 1. Our regular weekly meeting is going to be that next investor meeting. Can we scroll down, please? Or is that all the questions? Next Wednesday, November 23rd, the meeting will happen. As always, there will be a Zoom link. There will be a recording. That meeting is where we take soft commitments on all this stuff. And once the rounds are filled, the rounds are filled. So please reach out to us if you want to make soft commitments now. Some people have already done it. So let us know what your level of interest is in this process. So we're at the end of our time. Thank you guys for being here or watching this. Thank you for just even being on this planet and thinking about these kind of things. And thank you for being part of this community where we're bringing these things to fruition. It's a pleasure to be of service, and hopefully we'll touch base soon. Love you all. See you next time.